Hi, this is Tammy. I got my Xtool M1 about 3 months ago, and I've spent a lot of time learning it, and I wanted to be able to share with other people some of the things I've learned about it. I am not an expert by any means, and you guys can probably also share your knowledge with me and others as well. But I'm just going to do a quick tutorial for you, and hopefully this will help you. So you probably have gotten your machine by now and you have unpacked it and got it set up. And now you want to do your first project, or maybe you've already done your first, but this is kind of directed towards somebody who hasn't used their machine yet. Okay. So let's just quickly review some of the features of this software and how easy it is to get started with your X tool. You also got a sample pack of materials with your machine. And we're going to do a wood cutout with the 3 millimeter basswood that you received with your machine today. Okay, so let's just talk about the software real quick and then we'll get into the actual project. First and foremost, you want to check out your settings. So in your setting tab here, this is how you decide if you're going to work in inches or millimeters. When I'm measuring wood, I usually work in millimeters. But when I'm trying to get the size of a project, I usually will switch over to inches. You can switch back and forth while you're using your or doing your project, so you can kind of get a feel of what size your project is. Okay. This also will tell you what version you are running. I currently am running beta 8.0. And if you want to check for updates, you can just come in here and click for updates. So that's all that you have right now in this tab. This is the beta version of their software, but they have had several updates to it. File basically is where you start a new project. You can open a project that is done. If you're actually using an SVG file, though, that you might have downloaded off of a website or from Etsy, you actually do import image for the SVG. You can only open projects that have an extension of XCS, and that's going to be what you're saving your projects with. And then just save and as save here. Okay. Image here, again, you can import an image from your files. Insert is, you can insert a line, a rectangle, and a circle. Down here, you can insert different shapes. Here, you can insert text. Vector will let you outline a project if you want to cut out a picture, for example. You can also use Inkscape, which is a free software that is much more extensive as far as making SVG files, but you can do quite a bit with this when you're first starting out and not have to explore that quite yet if you don't want to. Okay, and then we'll go into all these functions as we go. Select is your pointer, basically, instead of having your hand move things around. Okay, that's to down here on the left. So you're probably wanting so much just to get started with your project. So let's go ahead. The quickest way to start a project is to come up here into the projects tab. Let me tell you the info real quick too. So in here you have weekly updates and tips and tricks. It's kind of like a help button. And projects is where we're going to go to find our first project. This is the easiest way. There's projects all done in here and set up and ready to go. And support is exactly what it says. And shop will take you to buying supplies from Xtool and other equipment. Okay, so let's go into projects. They just have a little advertisement here. So this is a bunch of quick ideas here to get you started. And you want to first and foremost, make sure that the file will work on your machine. So you want to see what it's applicable to down here. And you also want to usually see what kind of medium it is set up for. So let's look at the pumpkin earrings real quick. Everybody wants pumpkin earrings for Halloween, so it's a perfect time to grab those. So these are for black acrylic is the tool. So we're going to work on wood today, so we don't want to do that one. So we're going to go back to the project center. And then there's all kinds of different projects here, but I'm going to go down and pick a very simple one to get started for your first project. Okay, we're going to pick an Easter project, not very timely, but it's a very simple project. and it actually is going to be done on a wood piece. So Xtool has little rectangle wood pieces that you can purchase 150 pieces at a time. But honestly, you don't necessarily need to do that unless you want a little bit more of a finished piece of thicker wood. You can actually just cut out this shape with your laser. So that's what we're going to do today when we do our project. So let's go ahead and grab this, and we're going to do Start Project. And this is just going to go ahead and drop our project into our software, okay? You'll notice it's kind of smaller than we maybe want. So we want to adjust the size of this. So the first thing we're going to do is select it by just clicking on it. When you do that, it puts this nice little box around this, and you can just grab the corner of it, pull, and you can make it a larger size. I want you to notice up here what size this is, and this is currently in inches. It tells you right up here next to size. So this is only 1.1 inch height. Now, I also want you to notice this little lock in between these two sizes. What this lock tells you is that right now you cannot change the proportional size of this project with this lock on. If you decide you want to make it wider than higher, then you're going to hit that lock and unlock it. But we're going to go ahead and lock it because I want to keep the correct proportions to it. Okay, so I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Now it's 2.71 inches, and I'm fine with that. So I'm going to move that down here just so you guys can see it a little bit better, but we'll probably move it when we actually start cutting out. Okay, so right now, the right side of the panel here, first of all, you want to make sure you're connected to your device when you start. Connecting it with the USB is basically connecting it with a direct cable. Wi-Fi, you can set it up, excuse me, for Wi-Fi connection, and I'll show you how to do that here in a minute. And IP, as you can set it up as an IP address. I haven't used this function. I've only used this. If I'm cutting, I have a tendency to want to use the USB more than the Wi-Fi because I feel like it's more reliable. I haven't necessarily proven that, but it's just my gut feeling on this. Mine is not with me right now. It's in another room. It's not going to be able to find it because I don't have it turned on. Okay, let's close this for a minute because I'm not ready to cut, so I don't care if it's connected. You'll know you're connected because you will see the inside of your machine. You'll see the platform of it once that it connects because it does have a camera in it. Okay, we're going to cut this laser flat. That is just cutting a piece of wood inside your machine with the bottom in place. Second is what material we are going to use. So we can go ahead and default to the 3mm basswood plywood. I personally like to use my own definition of material because I have found the one thing I have invested in that I love is I have an electronic caliper to measure my wood thickness. In the beginning, when I started, I had trouble with my wood burning too much, and I found that this is the best way to get an accurate reading is to have a electronic caliper. I'll put the link for that. I got it from Amazon down in the comments. Okay, so most of my woods I have found that I've been buying online are 2.6 or 2.8 millimeters. So I will just usually put 2.8 millimeters in, and actually this is inches, so I need to go switch. This is where I'll usually switch back to millimeters. Okay, I don't have to save it or anything. I just click it off. So now I don't want 16 millimeters. I want 2.6 millimeters. Okay. I have my auto measure off because I'm not going to use that, but you can use auto measure. I found it to be pretty reliable, but it doesn't always measure everything. Okay, height raised. What that means is, am I working on triangle prisms when I'm on the laser flat? This will change depending on what other ways you're cutting. You can cut with the laser attachment. You can remove the bottom and have an open plane. You can do a blade cut if you're doing a blade project, and you can do a print and blade cut where you actually print out like stickers and then you cut them out with the blade. Okay, but we're going to use laser flat. So we want to go ahead and cut on triangle prisms. You don't want to cut on the bottom of your machine without either triangle prisms or purchasing a honeycomb to put underneath it, just because you need some air underneath your wood to reduce any burning. Okay. A lot of people too will use a piece of or aluminum tray on their bottom plate to keep their bottom plate in good condition. I personally engraved my bottom plate the first week that I did it on my first machine, and I'm very careful now to not do that. So we'll talk about that when we start cutting. Okay, so this right now is just set up to engrave, which is what we want to do. Go ahead and leave it with the default that they have selected, and that is power and speed. There is a file that I will also put a link to that is the suggested settings for all different types of materials with thicknesses from Xtool. It's part of their website, but I will also put a link to that on this video. So we're just going to go ahead and leave it. So what this is saying is it's saying how intense do you want the power? What speed do you want it? So the way the speed works, the slower your speed, the more intense your laser is, because it's taking a long time to move. The faster your laser is, the less it's going to cut. Okay, but it won't burn either. If you put your speed way down, then you're probably going to get some burn if it's too low. So you just want to go ahead and go with what they have here for the laser defined material. And I think I just moved this, but I think it was around 60. I'll make sure before I do my project. And then a pass is that you're going to do it one time. So if you want to make sure you don't have burning, a lot of people will speed up their machine a little bit and do several passes. Okay, but we're just going to leave it to the defaults and go with that. Okay, grayscale. This is just different types of engraving, and we'll get into that more later on. But I always suggest you just try the different styles on a test piece to find out what they do if you're interested in seeing the differences. But it's just different types of output of a bitmap. Okay, and then lines is how much detail you want on your actual engraving. Again, it's kind of trial and error, just depending on what different surfaces you're doing, and we'll get into more detail with that later. We want to get you cutting basically today. Okay, so what we're missing here is we're going to just have a board with an etched piece, and we're not going to cut it out. So we need something to cut this out. So let's come on over here to our shapes, because we don't want just a line, rectangle, or circle. We want a different shape. And I'm going to go ahead and grab this square with the rounded corners down here, and we're going to use this to cut out our piece. So let's go ahead and we're going to move it. When the arrow turns into multi-directional, that's when you can move your project. Okay. We're going to drop this on top, and then we have to make it bigger. I don't care if it gets distorted, because I am going to make it longer than I am going to make it wide. So I'm fine with that. So it's okay that it's unlocked here. Whatever is highlighted is what you are addressing. Right now, I'm not doing anything to the inside piece, which is the engraving piece, because it's not highlighted. Okay. Now, if I want to move both these pieces up into the corner when it's time to cut, instead of grabbing each one of these separately, that's the inside piece, this is the outside piece, I'm going to highlight both of these and grab them together. I have found you only have to really highlight a portion of each, and it will grab the whole thing. It knows where it starts and stops. And now when I move this, I move them together as a project. Okay. So that's basically it on that, except we do want to put the settings for the cut. Okay. So right now we now have three options. We have score, engrave, and cut. So we're going to switch over to cut, and we're going to, you can default to the user-defined material for this if you want, but I'm going to go ahead and set it. I usually do 103 for my 2.6 millimeter wood. Sometimes it'll get to be a little intense, but this is a super simple design. If I have a lot of detail in my cut, I find that I will move my speed up to like 5 or 7 and sometimes do 2 passes instead, just because the closer your cuts are, the more intense it gets with the heat. Okay. So that's it. Now we're going to go ahead and connect our device and we will do the second part of this. Okay, I have now connected my M1 to my computer, and you can see the bed of my M1 here on the screen. I just have some prisms sitting in the bottom. Those are the metal rods, the triangular metal rods that come with your machine. You get 10 of them. I use between 4 and 5 when I do wood. So that's what you see down here on the bottom of my bed. So we're going to go ahead and put the wood in, and I'm going to refresh it so you can see it. So when you're not seeing on your screen what is in the bed of your machine, you want to hit refresh to see it. You'll see right here that my machine is hooked up with via USB. And if you haven't set up your machine yet on your computer, you want to hit this little gear button up here, and you can name your device whatever you want. Some people use multiple devices, so they will have different names for them. And this does tell you what type of machine you have, what wattage you purchased, your serial number, the firmware that you're using, and you do want to check for dates on updates on a regular basis. And it says right now I have Wi-Fi settings set up, but I'm not connected via Wi-Fi. If you haven't set up the Wi-Fi version of this, and you're going to go ahead and hit the settings, and it's going to look for your Wi-Fi connections, and you can go ahead and refresh if you don't see those. There's a pull down menu for that, so you can select it, and then enter your password to connect. I only use my Wi-Fi. I used it in the very beginning, but I felt like my USB port was a little bit more reliable than my Wi-Fi. So I have a tendency to use the USB unless I'm working on projects where I'm outlining different pictures and stuff. Then I will use my USB because I can do it while I'm sitting inside. Okay. So we want to go ahead and make sure all of our settings are right. Laser flat, user defined. I'm going to bump this to 2.8 because I measured my wood before I put it in, and I am on triangular prisms. If you don't put this in and you have your you leave it just as no, it is going to cause a problem with your wood because it needs to know how far up or down your wood is. And I recommend you only cut on triangular prisms or on a honeycomb as opposed to trying to cut on the bed of your laser. Then I'm just going to highlight the middle one so you can see that real quick. Okay, there we go. My engrave is 60, 68. I'm going to bump it a little bit. There we go. And triangular prisms 2.8, that's all good. Now, for some reason, if I wanted to do this project and I didn't want to do the engraving and I just wanted to cut out this piece, you can just turn off your output and then it will not engrave, or vice versa for the actual outline. I could just turn off the output. So I have used that when I have not been happy with my engraving and I feel like I need to do it one more time, but I don't necessarily want to do a cut or something. Then I come back here and turn off the cut and just go ahead and engrave it one more time. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit process. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and frame this. Framing helps you make sure that your project is where you think it's going to end up on the wood. This comes in really handy when you have used your piece of wood before and you just want to make sure you're not going to cut someplace it's already cut. Okay, so we're going to hit the framing. And then we're going to go over to our machine and hit the button. And then we're going to watch and make sure it frames where we think it's going to frame. Okay. Okay, my wood's in there. I'm going to press my button, make sure your lid is down, and then it's going to frame the outline of the project. Once the framing is complete, we're going to go ahead and hit start. So we're going to hit the button one more time, and then we can watch the project in progress. Sorry, I've got some glare in here. I'm out in the garage. If you want to see how your project's going, you can always press the button and lift the lid. Lifting the lid will also stop the process, but I usually press the button. Make sure that you're happy with the deepness of the engraving, and I'm happy with that, so we're going to go ahead and move forward. I'm going to close my lid, press the start button again, and it will pick up where it left off, which I've heard other lasers don't do that, but I have no other experience with this. Okay, we'll let that do its work, and then I'll come back when it's time to cut. Now, when I say come back, I don't ever leave my laser. I always stay right next to it when it's cutting, just in case you have any kind of flare-up. You will be available to stop the machine, so I don't ever leave the room. Okay, we're all done. If you notice, it's now going to the cutting phase. Sorry, my camera should be up higher. And it does not look like it's cutting, which is great for me to show you how to fix this. So after reviewing my settings, I realized I put engrave on the outer line too instead of cut. So I just made that modification. I turned off my engrave so I wouldn't engrave that part again. And then we're going to go ahead and start it up again. Okay, let's turn it on and let it cut. Okay, that's going to go ahead and cut, and we will come back. Okay, it's almost done with the cut. You can just see the light at the top where it's finishing up. A lot of times when it's done, it will drop onto the prisms. And then it'll return to home. There we go. You can see that it's dropped, and we have a good cut. Let's go ahead and remove the wood and see what we're left with. Okay. It's a great little project. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please be sure to subscribe and check the details below for the links of the products I was sharing with you. Have a great day.